Good evening. It's Friday, September the 12th at approximately 8:30 in the evening. And I'm continuing with my selections on paradoxes having to do with yoga philosophy. My name is James Exum. My yogic name is Sakshi, S-A-K-S-H-I, which S-A-K-S-H-I, which means the witness. And this will be paradox number 2 that I will be narrating and exploring the subject of unity, duality, and the transcendence in yogic thought of the divine paradox, how the same God or deity can stand on opposite sides of conflict in the philosophy of yoga. So it's a rather deep paradox, but it should take less than 30 minutes to explore and to enjoy the benefits of the thoughts that are captured herein. I'll start with the introduction. The ancient philosophy of yoga, rooted in the spiritual traditions of India, offers a profound focal point through which to examine the paradoxical presence of the same God on the opposite sides of two warring factions. Now, we find this in the great work Mahabharata, and we also find it in the best-known work, probably in yoga philosophy and the text of yoga, besides the Upanishads and the Vedic classics. We find it also in the Mahabharata, as I said, the great work. And there's a extraction from that, which is known as the Bhagavad Gita. And in both of those, Lord Krishna is involved in two warring factions, and he doesn't necessarily take sides, but he's in both cases, he seems to be neutral to one faction, and informative to the secondary one. But again, gods really cannot take sides, not true gods. Now, there are gods that exist in our present-day religious systems that have favorites. The chosen people is a really prime example of that. And then you have Muhammad, who takes sides against the infidels. And so to me, those are, even though they're historical gods and they have millions and millions of followers, they don't really for me, they don't really stack up to the true definition of a god. A god should be impartial, in my humble opinion. And that's why I follow the philosophy of yoga, the science of yoga, which is not a religion, it is the science of life, the science of living. I'm ad-libbing at this point, but I'm also reading from my written work on this particular subject and all the other subjects of my previous 41 videos were written by me as an old yogi, as a yogic philosopher, and one who does explorations of comparative mythology, comparative religions, comparative philosophy. So to get back to it, this scenario he evocates is evocative of epic tales such as the Mahabharata, as I just said, and other mythologies, and they are considered mythologies. There's no physical, archaeological proof of their reality, historical proof. This scenario invites contemplation not only of divine impartiality, which I just spoke of, but also of the deeper metaphysical principles at play in the universe. And there are a lot of principles at play in the universe. Through the teachings of yoga, especially as articulated in the classical texts, philosophies, and practices, one can begin to unravel the layers of meaning beneath this enigmatic phenomena, being how can a god stand on opposite sides of a conflict that humans are involved in? Well, they're humans, he is God. That's one of the answers. contextualizing divine impartiality. This is a sub category within this writing, within this discourse. Before delving into yogic philosophy, it's essential to establish the context in which the same God might appear to support opposing sides. In mythological narratives, particularly those found in the Mahabharata, the god Krishna is a central figure who interacts with both the Pandavas and the Kauravas. The Pandavas and the Kauravas, two warring families. Krishna offers his counsel and his presence to both, but crucially, there's the key word in the sentence, crucial and concept, crucially, he gives his active assistance to one while remaining passive with the other. I said neutral, but passive is close enough. With the other, respecting the choices of the individuals involved. So in other words, if you have the same God for two warring factions, then how can that God be on both sides? Well, this statement just told you basically how that works. He gives his active assistance to one side while remaining passive with the other, respecting the choices of the individuals involved. In other words, he's like a referee, but not really. He's more of a witness. In fact, he is the witness. Sakshi means the witness. Sakshi is another name for Brahman, which is another name for God. It's also another name for the human soul, or the Atman, or the Jiva. These are all terms and terminology that are found in yogic philosophy and in yogic text and in yogic lessons. This narrative device raises a philosophical question, because I did use a narrative device in my writing there. I used a device as part of my narrative that could basically cover the basis of which this whole paper is about, this whole discourse is concerning itself. This narrative device raises a philosophical question. How can a single a single divine entity be present for, or even associated with, opposing forces in human conflict? Well, that's the whole point of the paper. And now we're going to explore my opinion and my writings on how this works. Yoga philosophy, non-duality, and unity. This is the next subdivision. At the heart of yoga philosophy is the concept of non-duality, or advaita, and beta. Neither, either, potato, tomato, patio. The pronunciation is the important thing. It's the meaning of the word that's important. A major school of Indian philosophy posits that the ultimate reality, Brahman, is singular, unchanging, and beyond all dualities, such as good and evil. Well, I agree with that 100%. He's also beyond taking sides, as I said earlier, like some of the modern gods tend to. And when I say modern gods, I'm not mocking anybody's religion, but there are ancient gods, as you well know. There was the god of the Romans, there was the god of the Greeks. You've got Zeus in there, you've got Mars, you've got Venus, you've got Aphrodite, you've got Pluto. Most of the planets are named after gods are in our solar system. And so from this vantage point, the apparent division into warring factors is a manifestation of Maya. Now, I've already done a video on Maya, so if you want to catch up on that, please just refer to it. It's in my list. You can just go to my list of videos and you'll find, just type in Maya, type in James Exum, type in yoga, type in Maya, and it should pull up that video for you. That's the simplest path I know of. Then this cosmic illusion, Maya is the cosmic illusion that leads to the perception of multiplicity. In other words, really there's only one single thing in the universe, and that is Brahman. But Maya, which is an agent of Brahman, a tool of Brahman, presents to the human mind which is very limited in its ability to grasp the scope of the cosmos itself, and the cosmic illusion that is presented by Maya. Maya acts as the agent of Brahman so that we see things in sort of a cosmic play. We're part of that play because we're part of Brahman. Brahman is eternal, our souls are eternal, our bodies are like vehicles that we use in the play of the cosmos to transport our minds and our brains and our spinal cords and our physical organs around within the environment on the stage of the play that is being presented to our human comprehension, our human consciousness, by the power, the Sakshi of Maya. That's a bit heavy, but I'm a yogi philosopher. I'm not a kindergarten teacher, but you can double check me on all this. That's fine. I've had 50 years of experience in dealing with these terms and this terminology, these type of writings. So please double check me. I appreciate it. I assure you, my thoughts and words will be a lot more accurate than some of the things that are coming out of the economic and political fields that run this country at this point in time. God, now I'm going into bullet points here. God as all-pervasive. In yogic thought, God, or the divine consciousness, is not limited to a particular side or entity. This is what I mean. Gods are not allowed, true gods, and I'm not saying the God of the Hebrews is not a true God. He's a God to them, and he's true to them. In fact, he's totally true to them. Everybody else is expendable in his world. If you don't believe me, just thumb through any book of the Bible, books of the Bible in the Old Testament, and the Torah, so to speak, and you'll see how he slaughtered other races and other peoples left and right with indiscretion, including the firstborn children of Egypt, which had nothing to do with Pharaoh's holding on to the Jewish peoples as slaves. The children of Egypt had nothing to do with that. The slaughter of the innocents also in the New Testament had nothing to do with the conflict between the people representing the Christ and he himself as a child, and their travels into Egypt, his mother and father, so to speak, their travels into Egypt. They had nothing to do with that conflict, but they were slaughtered anyway by the God of the Christians, the Jews and the Christians. It's the same God, by the way. So God is all-pervasive in yogic thought. God, or the divine consciousness, is not limited to a particular side or entity. The divine is omnipresent, manifesting in all beings and all circumstances. The Bhagavad Gita repeatedly emphasizes that Krishna is present in all, regardless of sides. This is probably one of the most important videos I shall do. Let that sink in for a moment. I'm not saying the other videos are less important. I'm just saying this one, it rates right up there in the top 3, if not numero uno. It is very important. Unity and diversity. Although there appears to be conflict, yoga maintains that underlying all differences is a fundamental unity. Whether one is a Pandava or a Kaurava, those are the two opposing families in the Bhagavad Gita battle that's happening on that battlefield. Each is an expression of the same divine consciousness, albeit conditioned by karma and individual dharma. Those are the twins, or the cousins, I call them. Karma, dharma, and the divine witness. Now we're into another subsection. Yoga teaches that life unfolds according to the twin principles of karma. I call them Well, they're twins. When I first came up with that term, I was doing it on the fly in one of my earlier videos. And you're welcome to look up that Karma Dharma video. The twin principles of karma and dharma. Action and its karma is action and its consequences, whereas dharma is one's duty or righteous path. The divine in this context serves as both the witness and the felicitator, allowing both sides to play out their destinies. You see here, if God, Brahman, is present for a battle, and he's the God of both sides that are engaging in the battle, you see here, he can be there and be the God to both factions, but what he's doing in actuality is a neutral stance. He's allowing both sides to play out their destinies. If I'm the father of two boys that are going to, say in the 1800s, they're going to go out and have an early morning duel because they're disagreeing over a girlfriend, a mutual girlfriend, I'm still their father. I still love both of them. But if they want to duel, which was the style of that time period, and for gentlemen to do, they'd had their seconds and they had their guns, and they, back to back, and then walk off 20 paces, turn around and fire, and let fate decide what would happen, who's right or who's wrong, so to speak. Well, they were fulfilling their destinies. But the father, who in a way is the God to them because he is their creator, along with their mother, and along with the grace of the original creator, Brahman, allowed them to act out their little petty game of war on the battlefield of dueling early in the morning. So you see that example I just gave you. This is sort of how God is involved in both sides at the same time, but he's impartial, or should be. Brahman is always impartial, by the way. Not necessarily the gods of other religions. Again, I'm not putting these religions down. I'm just stating my opinion on it, and I'm stating historical fact, how gods of other religions tend to interfere and to be impartial, or not impartial, but to be partial, and to take sides, and to wreak havoc on other peoples that aren't part of his chosen group. Yes, that's right, his chosen ones. I'm going to get in trouble with this, I'm sure, later down the road, but not really. An old Yogi can't get in trouble for his opinion because he's thought it out well in advance, and his logic will defeat any discrimination towards his vocal and narrative, his vocal and spoken narratives, his narratives and written thoughts, which is the discourse. Karma. Each faction, each individual carries their own karmic burdens and destinies. The divine does not force outcomes, but provides the opportunity and the stage for karma to unfold. Well, that's what the father did with the two dueling sons over the same girlfriend, the same love interest. That's karma. Dharma, the role of dharma, is central in yoga. One's duty may place them on either side of a conflict, but adherence to dharma is considered a spiritual path, very much so. Regardless of the outcome, the divine supports each person in following their dharma, even if these paths lead to opposition. Sakshi, who is the witness, and also my pen name and the name I gave to my soul, Sakshi. In yogic philosophy, God is often described as Sakshi. Now, when I named my soul that, I was not under any pretense that I have any divine qualities, I assure you of that, or I was in conflict or in competition with the name of God. It's just simply the witness to me, that little voice that whispers information to you that is righteous. But it is not allowed to interfere in your life. It can only suggest. And basically, that's what God does. He is there for you, but he does not personally interfere. Not the Yogic, not the God of yoga. And he's the creator. I don't consider Brahman a god. I consider him the creator. To me, a god is something that there's a statue of him somewhere, and people bow down to him and pay homage to him and oblations to him. That's more in the Hindu religion. I'm not a Hindu, and I have no religion. I have a science, a philosophical concept in a science that I follow, concepts in a science that I follow. Sakshi, the witness in Yogic philosophy, God is often described as a Sakshi, the witness who observes all actions impartially. Well, this is my method. This is what I do. This is my way of living. The divine presence is with all beings, regardless of their apparent opposition to each other or even to the concept of God. Transcending dualities, the ultimate teachings of yoga. Another subdivision, one of the highest teachings in yoga is to transcend dualities. And I give examples of dualities: pain and pleasure, victory and defeat, friend and enemy, etc., etc. The presence of the same God on both sides of a war is a powerful symbol of this transcendence. But it's an incredibly important concept and statement I wrote there. The presence of the same God on both sides of a war is a powerful symbol of the transcendence of dualities. Beyond good and evil, in the Yogic view, good and evil are relative terms, shaped by context, culture, and perspective. Well, stop and think about what I just said there. Shaped by context, culture, and perspective. The Americans, when the colonists and the pioneers that went west and slaughtered the red man, thought they had divine right to do that. The Indians, slaughtering them back and setting their wagon trains on fire, thought they were right. This is, and I'm not laughing at the death on either side or the destruction or the mistreatment or the misappropriation of power or manifest destiny. I'm not getting into any of that. Or colonization, like they're doing in the Middle East right now with those poor Palestinians. I'm not getting into politics. I'm not getting into any of that. I'm just brushing across it. I'm sort of touching it with barely touching it with the tip of my index finger. But I'm not getting into it. I'll let y'all fight all that out with your own gods backing you and being partial towards you. My God is impartial towards everyone. My creator, he's not really my God, he's my creator. That is a God-like function in creation. Well, all these paintings you see behind me on the wall, I'll show you a few. All those paintings you see out there, those are my creation. So am I a God because I created those paintings? Well, again, it's a matter of belief, context, and perspective. The divine is beyond the binaries. He's beyond this good and evil. He's beyond all sorts of things, because those are relative terms shaped by context, culture, and perspective. Compassion and equanimity. Yoga advocates for compassion and equanimity, a state of balance where one recognizes the suffering and joys of all beings regardless of affiliation. Well, you see, here I am teaching yogic philosophy. I'm not teaching division. I'm not making fun of other people's religions and their gods. I'm just pointing out something in those religions and in the actions of their gods and in their followers that I do not take to heart. It's not logical to me. I go with the logical. Science should be, and in my opinion is, when properly presented and properly proven, logical. And I'm an old logical yogi. That's how I chose yoga over religion. I went with science as opposed to religion. And this is a very important one, and I highlighted this on my paper that I'm reading from my screen of my computer here. I highlighted this line, this bullet point, oneness. The ultimate realization in yoga is the oneness of all existence. Realizing this, a yogi, and I am a yogi, sees divine equally present in all. The divine equally present in all, transcending the illusion of separation. Let that one sink in for a while if you like. You can always go back and rewind and take notes and look up all of this and fact check me and Yogipedia, Wikipedia, or any of the papers that have been written by hundreds and hundreds of yogic writers and philosophers and narrators from about 8,000 BC up to present day Earth time. Illustrated examples from the Mahabharata and Krishna, Lord Krishna. The Mahabharata, one of India's greatest epics, offers a rich example of these philosophical principles. When both the Pandavas and the Kauravas, those are the two families, seek Krishna's aid, he offers himself to one side as a non-combative advisor, and that's the side with Arjuna, the prince, the archer, in the Bhagavad Gita, and his army to the other. Krishna's impartiality as a divine witness is emphasized as he supports both sides according to their choices and karmas, while guiding each towards their own dharma, which is another way of saying your destiny. Your dharma is the righteous path. If you have a illogical path, that is also your dharma. That is your destiny. You either choose proper destiny or improper destiny. You either choose proper dharma or improper dharma. You either choose proper karma or improper karma. And there's neutrality in there also. That's the third choice. Freedom of choice. Krishna does not impose his will, but allows each faction to choose their path, just like the father with the dueling sons. Guidance without favoritism. His guidance is available to all, though the outcome depends on each side's willingness to receive it. If I tell a son of mine, son, you're wasting your money on that loose woman, and she's just taking the inheritance I've given you, and that you can invest and find a good mate and have a good family and have a good future and have a good retirement and so forth. But if you just want to spend your money on loose women, and don't worry, they'll take your spending, and they'll spend it faster than water going down a drain. I can assure you of that, because I was young once. I know how it works. So though the outcome depends on each side's willingness to receive it. Well, if that son doesn't receive that advice, there's no saying in business. He just pissed it away. I'm a yogi. I'm not a pope. I'm not a priest. I'm not a bishop. I can say words like piss and damn and hell and rat's ass. It may not seem right to you for a yogi to use terms like that, but again, this is not religion. This is science. Teaching through paradox. The paradoxical presence of Krishna on both sides serves to teach the deeper lessons of yoga. The importance of self-knowledge, dharma, and the illusion of duality. The paradox presence of Krishna on both sides serves to teach the deeper lessons of yoga. This is colon, quote unquote. The importance of self-knowledge, dharma, and the illusion of duality. There is no duality. There's only the Creator and His creations, and we are the creations. Non-attachment and the spiritual path. Yoga emphasizes the importance of non-attachment, which is viraga, and surrender, which is isvara, pranahana, pranadana. Isvara pranadana. This principle helps practitioners move beyond identification with any particular side or outcome. These principles. To further illuminate this inquiry, it's fruitful to draw upon the profound commentaries of Adi Shankara. When I write my papers, I like to include Adi Shankara's narratives and his opinions, and his way of looking at things from his classical position of 8th century, 8th century Common Era. He was from the 700 after the Christ. Shankara's work consistently returns to the essential truth that multiplicity is an illusion. Well, I've said that already several times during this discourse. Sustained only by ignorance, which is avidya, of the underlying oneness. In his extensive commentaries on the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, Shankara repeatedly asserts that the divine cannot be truly divided, nor does it ever participate as a partisan in the dramas of the manifest world. Well, there, Shankara and I are in 100% agreement, my friends. Rarely do we diverge. For Shankara, Krishna's simultaneous presence with both warring factions is not a contradiction, but a vivid demonstration of Brahman's all-encompassing nature. When I say Krishna, I'm not using him interchangeably with Brahma, because Krishna is an avatar of Shiva, which is part of the Trimurti, which is the trilogy, which all falls under the power of the creator, which is Brahman. I'm going through generations of deities here, and using the word deity very loosely. Krishna's simultaneous presence with both warring factions is not a contradiction, but a vivid demonstration of Brahman's all-encompassing nature, a reality that transcends apparent opposition and reveals itself as a substratum of all existence. Thus, the God who dwells among the Pandavas and the Kauravas is not a separate entity favoring one over the other, but the very self, Atman, abiding equally within all beings. You see, there is a spark of the divine that is unknown to the human body, and you'll hear me say this dozens of times in my discourses. But it's important, in case you've missed all my other discourses, to understand this. If you're a novice to my talks, God alone projected a piece of himself, a divine spark, into the living human body, and that is your soul, your Atman, your Jiva, your spark of the divine. It entered the body with your first breath, it will leave the body with your last breath. This is my opinion, this is my theory on it. But I stick with it. I see from historical passages and writings that this is the way it seems to work. The breath of life enters you, the breath of life exits you. Then what is left? Well, the body is like an old suit of clothes. It's cast aside, and then, because of the dharma and the karma of the life of the Atman, which is the soul in the body, the Sakshi, which is the witness, which is the same thing as the soul within the body, goes either, it goes on with its karma and its dharma, and it receives its just rewards. So it goes back to the creator. It blends back into the cosmos, because it was projected from the cosmos. So where else would it go? A plant comes out of the soil, it thrives, it dies, it dissolves back into the soil. This is the cycle of life. This is birth, life, death. This is creation, preservation, dissolution. That's also the Trimurti, the three gods, so to speak. Thus, the God who dwells among the Pandavas and the Kauravas is not a separate entity favoring one over the other, but the very self, Atman, abiding equally within all beings. Myself, as a modern scholar of comparative religion and myth, extend this philosophical meditation by examining how mythic narratives employ divine impartiality to provoke ethical and metaphysical reflection. My writing suggests that the God's presence on both sides is a deliberate invitation. Here it comes. Is a deliberate invitation to recognize the limits of human perspective. There it is in a nutshell. You might have to listen to that 2 or 3 times to grasp the meaning. I do not teach Sunday school. I do not teach kindergarten. I do not teach elementary, middle school, high school, undergraduate. I teach none of those levels. I teach at the level of a yogi with a half a century of experience, writing, researching, comprehending, absorbing, and assimilating. That's my level. That's not brag, that's just fact. Implications of modern life. The philosophical insights offered by yoga are not confined to ancient stories. They have significant implications for contemporary conflicts and personal struggles. Of course they do. Seeing the divine in all, yoga teaches us to look for the divine spark in everyone. Well, there's that divine spark I was talking about. Even those we perceive as opponent. Because God is impartial, because Brahma is impartial, that divine spark is in every human. He's not judging you. You are creating your own final justice through creating your own sets of circumstances that will be judged through your karma, through your dharma. Moving beyond polarization, by recognizing the unity beneath apparent division, we can cultivate empathy, talking about humans, understanding, and peace in our interactions. Hopefully that's going to come back. It's kind of on vacation. It seems like an 8-year vacation, and hopefully not longer. Embracing the paradox. Life is full of paradoxes, and yoga offers tools to embrace them rather than be confounded by them. Well, I said that earlier. Now, here we are at our conclusion, which is good because I'm getting a little, not tired, but a little, not dismayed. Well, I'm an older man. I'm about to celebrate my 75th birthday, so doing these this is not a walk in the park for me anymore. It was when I was younger, and I did pretty darn well for almost 75, 77, every 30th to 75th. And by then I shall have created 50 original videos on the subject of yoga philosophy, which isn't bad considering I started less than 2 months ago. Taught myself everything. How to use this new phone as a camera, on and on and on, and how to set up this scene, how to dress, how to groom myself, how to speak on camera, how to write these discourses, well, I've already been writing for years, so that wasn't anything. The editing wasn't much. So conclusion, divine presence and human conflict. In the end, the possibility that the same God can be on the opposite side of two warring factions is not only plausible with yogic philosophy, it is a profound illustration of its deepest principles. The divine is omnipresent, impartial, and the source of all existence. Warring factions, though seemingly opposed, are ultimately expressions of the same cosmic reality. Well, of course they are. There's only one reality. If you go to a movie and you see a war movie, or even in Romeo and Juliet, there's two families warring. Well, that's still part of the cosmic reality. It's just variations on a theme. Life, basically, is variations on a theme. And if you don't believe me, start doing a little morning notation each morning when you wake up about what you expect to do that day. And you'll see after doing that for about a month that everything you're putting down as your proposed activity for the given day of the morning you just awoke and wrote all this down, it's all variations on a theme. The old saying, there's nothing new under the sun. Well, of course there isn't. How could it be? Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed. energy changes into mass changes into energy. It's all variations on the theme, just like I keep saying to you. And I don't want to hammer that point home so much that it bores you to death, but there it is. The divine is omnipresent, impartial, and the source of all existence. Warring factions, though seemingly opposed, are ultimately expressions of the same cosmic reality. Through the practice and philosophy of yoga, one can learn to perceive unity in diversity. Well, I see unity in diversity. Through the practice and philosophy of yoga, one can learn to perceive unity in diversity, to transcend dualities, and to act with compassion and wisdom in the midst of conflict. I very seldom am involved in a conflict. I really can't remember the last time. The paradox of, well, I actually can. It was my sister acting up, and I became a little testy with her, but she shouldn't have done, in my opinion, she should not have done what she did, and later on she apologized. The paradox of divine impartiality, far from undermining faith, encourages the seeker to look beyond surface disagreements and recognize the deeper dance of consciousness at play. When you see, that's Lord Shiva back there, right there on that high boy behind me. You see his shadow over here. His shadow right there. There it is. That's Lord Shiva. Well, that's the cosmic dance. The paradox of divine impartiality, far from undermining faith, encourages the seeker to look beyond the surface disagreements and recognize the deeper dance of consciousness at play. It serves as a reminder that in the eyes of the divine, all beings are worthy of presence, guidance, and love. And that yoga is the path towards realizing the truth within oneself in the world. In other words, consciousness itself. I write, the God who stands with both sides is the symbol of the ultimate unity pervading diversity, a subtle reminder the universe does not take sides. It enables all possible expressions. My narrative highlights the didactic purpose of paradox in Indian thought, urging a movement towards literalism, towards metaphysical insight. It's sort of a heavy duty into that paragraph. I, reflecting on Shankara's metaphysics, note that the paradox of one God on both sides is resolved in the recognition that all conflict is a play of prakriti, while Purusha, the pure consciousness, remains untouched. See, there's two things. There's prakriti and there's Purusha. You can look these up, Yogapedia, Wikipedia, to get a fuller understanding. I'm not going to go into depth on those definitions for you during this discourse. I want to keep this under 50 minutes. In fact, I want to keep it under 45 minutes, and I'm almost there. As the narrator, I point to the Gita's insistence that yoga is the discipline of equanimity, a stance not of indifference, but of profound awareness and compassion. And there it is. And so it is done. So, if I stepped on some toes during this, well, maybe your toes need to be stepped on to wake you up. In my opinion, who follows a God that slaughters innocent children and innocent races just because they're not his chosen ones or they're infidels? That's my opinion. And I stand by it 1,000%, I assure you, and have for over 50 years. So I'm going to close on a much lighter note. I want all of you to that saw this and gained something from it, enjoyed it. Well, thank you. I want to know that I thank you for that, and I invite you back to my next one. There'll be 8 more of these now. This is number 2 of the group. And so I'll close with my common phrases. Be good to yourself, be good to each other, and be good to friends and family and even strangers. And remember, when all of this madness is going on in our world right now goes away, by whatever circumstance, and hopefully it's nonviolent, then we'll be able to look once again at each other as friends and neighbors to say, oh, we're back, we're silver once again, and we can have a good life without arguments. And goodbye to you, and good night.